Today is your sister's birthday. We can't come. Those 10 words were texted to me while I was sitting in the front row of a church, staring at my 28-year-old husband's casket. He had lost his battle with cancer just 4 days prior. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped my phone onto the marble floor. I looked around the empty pews on my side of the aisle. No mom. No dad. No sister. They weren't stuck in traffic. They weren't lost. They were across town, blowing up balloons, lighting candles, and popping champagne for my golden child sister's 24th birthday bash. Everyone at the reception thought grief had finally made me lose my mind when I suddenly stopped crying, stood up, and smiled. But they didn't know what I had just discovered about my family, or the devastating truth I was about to drop right in the middle of their party. My name is Chloe, and at 26 years old, I've already learned that blood doesn't make you family, loyalty does. Growing up, I was the invisible daughter. My younger sister, Savannah, was the undisputed golden child. If Savannah scratched her finger, the world stopped. If I broke my arm, I was told to stop being dramatic. I learned early on to keep my head down, work hard, and expect absolutely nothing from my parents. But then I met Ethan. The moment he walked into my life, the shadows faded away. He was funny, fiercely protective, and possessed a warmth that could melt the coldest room. For the first time in 26 years, someone looked at me and actually saw me. When we married, he didn't just become my husband. He became my home, my anchor, and the only real family I ever truly had. He knew how deeply my parents and sister had rejected me, and he made it his life's mission to ensure I never felt second best again. We were building a beautiful, quiet life together, completely independent of their toxic drama. I finally thought I was safe. Then, our beautiful world completely shattered. Ethan started getting severe headaches, and within weeks, we received the devastating diagnosis: aggressive cancer. In an instant, our dreams were replaced by sterile hospital rooms, endless chemotherapy rounds, and a crushing mountain of medical bills. Terrified and drowning in grief, I swallowed my pride and reached out to my parents, practically begging for just a little emotional support. I just needed my mother to hold my hand. But as always, Savannah's shallow world took precedence. When Ethan was rushed into an emergency 3-hour surgery, I called my mom sobbing from the waiting room. Her response? "Chloe, honey, we can't make it down there today. Savannah just went through a terrible breakup, and we need to help her pack up her apartment." During the absolute worst 3 months of my life, while I watched the man I loved fade away piece by piece, my family was physically and emotionally completely absent. They missed every milestone, ignored every frantic update, and skipped every major hospital stay. They were always too busy planning Savannah's minor life events to care that my husband was actively fighting for his life. The day finally came that I dreaded most. Ethan drew his last breath, leaving me completely hollowed out by grief. I was utterly alone, forced to arrange a funeral by myself while suffocating under a blanket of sorrow. When the funeral home gave me the only available date, my stomach dropped. It was the exact day of Savannah's 24-year-old birthday. I immediately called my mother, crying, begging her to understand. "Please, Mom, just come for the 1-hour service," I pleaded. "I need you." She hesitated, then told me she would see what she could do. But deep down, I already knew the truth. 4 days later, I sat by myself in the very front row of the quiet church, staring blankly at my 28-year-old husband's casket. That's when my phone buzzed in my lap. I looked down, expecting a message of condolences, but instead read those chilling, unforgettable words from my mother. "Today is your sister's birthday. We can't come." They chose party poppers and birthday cake over burying my husband, entirely destroying whatever fragile bond we had left. After the funeral, I returned to an agonizingly silent house. Drowning in debt and suffocating under the weight of my grief, I was at my absolute lowest point. Desperate to find our marriage certificate to process the life insurance, I began sorting through Ethan's private legal documents. That's when my fingers brushed against a heavy, velvet-lined box tucked deep inside his desk drawer. Inside was a single, old-fashioned brass key attached to a handwritten note from Ethan. The note simply gave an address and a box number. First National Bank, Safe Deposit Box 412. The very next morning, my hands shaking, I stood inside the bank's secure vault as the manager turned the key. When the heavy metal lid lifted, my breath caught in my throat. It wasn't just a few papers. Inside were real estate deeds, corporate certificates, and a letter written in the elegant script of Ethan's late grandfather. He had bypassed his own ungrateful, superficial children entirely, legally leaving his massive multi-million-dollar real estate empire and family business straight to Ethan. And because Ethan's final will left everything unconditionally to me, I was now the sole owner of a fortune. It didn't take long for the news of Ethan's grandfather's hidden wealth to leak out. Apparently, the bank had finally notified the extended family that the box had been officially cleared. Within 48 hours, the very same phones that had been dead silent during Ethan's agonizing 3-month battle with cancer suddenly began blowing up with frantic texts and missed calls. The parasites had smelled the money. Suddenly, my mother was texting me every single hour, her messages dripping with a sickening, synthetic sympathy that made my stomach turn. "Oh, Chloe, my sweet girl," one message read. "We are so deeply sorry we couldn't make the funeral. We've been crying every day since Ethan passed. Let's come over and take care of you." Then came Savannah's text, dropping the mask entirely. "Hey sis. So glad you're doing okay. Hey, I heard about Grandpa's old business. I'm actually looking to open this super cute dream boutique shop downtown, and Mom said you could easily fund it using our family money. Let's do lunch." I stared at the screen, a cold realization washing over me. They didn't care about my grief, and they certainly didn't care about Ethan. They just wanted to bleed me dry. Instead of hiding away or blocking their numbers, I decided it was time to play along with their little game. I took a deep breath, forced a sweet tone into my voice, and called my mother back. I pretended that the crushing grief had made me completely submissive, telling her exactly what she wanted to hear. "I'm not angry about the funeral, Mom," I lied smoothly. "In fact, I want to make things right. Tell Savannah I'm coming to her big birthday bash tonight, and I'm bringing a life-changing gift to help launch her new boutique." The sheer ecstasy in my mother's voice was sickening. She squealed, thanking me over and over, completely convinced that they had successfully manipulated the grieving widow. They truly believed I was about to hand over Ethan's hard-earned legacy on a silver platter just to beg for their love. I arrived at the glamorous party, walking right into the crowded venue with a beautifully wrapped box in my hands. The moment my mother and Savannah saw me, their eyes lit up with pure greed. "Chloe, you came?" Savannah squealed, eagerly snatching the box. In front of all their high society friends, she tore off the paper and opened the lid, expecting a massive check. Instead, the color completely drained from her face. Inside was no money. It was a legal restraining order, a giant blowout print of the heartless text message they sent me during the funeral, and a formal eviction notice. It turned out the very house my parents lived in was secretly owned by Ethan's grandfather's empire. I looked at their horrified faces, smiled coldly, and whispered, "Since you couldn't miss a party for Ethan, you can pack your bags by Monday." I walked out completely free.